Back in Revelation 8:13, we were introduced to a talking eagle flying in the mid-heavens, declaring, "Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because of the trumpet blasts about to be sounded by the other three angels." As if the first four trumpets weren't bad enough. Hail, flaming mountain, poisonous water, and darkness. Trumpets 5, 6, and 7 receive a special designation called woes. Having just read the first depicting the horrific locusts and their torturous impact, and categorizing them with their own special moniker now seems, well, rather fitting. The narrative gives us little time to catch our breath, telling us in verse 12 that first woe is past, two other woes are yet to come. Something tells me that, terrible as it sounds, the first will not be the worst. The sixth angel sounded his trumpet, and I heard a voice coming from the four horns of the golden altar that is before God. It said to the sixth angel who had the trumpet, "Release the four angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates." This golden altar is the same we've referenced several times, introduced with the opening of the fifth seal back in chapter 6. You know, the altar under which the souls of those who had been slain because of the word of God and their testimonies, it's where they resided, continues to play an important role in John's vision. The voice itself is harder to pin down. It's not God's voice. Maybe it's the voice of the souls under the altar. But last time their words were characterized as more of a prayer than a command. Another guess that it's the voice of the angel who held the golden censer, who cast some of the fire down from the altar, upon the earth. But last time that angel did not speak. Regardless of speaker, it's clear the purpose behind the activity is God's. What are we to make of the four angels? And back in Revelation 7, we encountered four angels who were holding back the winds. Now we're introduced to four other angels who themselves were being held back. It's hard to imagine a need to bind obedient angels. Thus, one would assume that they're likely in league with the angel of the abyss we met with the preceding trumpet. John continues, and the four angels who had been kept ready for this very hour and day and month and year were released to kill a third of mankind. The number of the mounted troops was twice 10,000 times 10,000. I heard their number. Now, somehow the four angels aren't just four angels. They've become a horrendous horde of cavalry. Now, the suggestion of their location in verse 14 of the Euphrates could perhaps be tied to Exodus 23, which suggests the Euphrates as the northeastern boundary of the Promised Land. Commentators also point to Jeremiah 46 and the invading army of horsemen waiting across the Euphrates on the day of the Lord. It's an allusion that seems to be picked up again in Revelation 16 when the Euphrates is dried up. We'll have to look at the description of the horses and the riders next week. What I think stands out most in the text and most encouraging to us is the reference that these angels and troops weren't merely prepared for this purpose. They had been kept for this hour. Whenever this moment of their loosing and the carnage to follow occurs, God already knows. Not only does the fact that God knows the hour speak of his knowledge, his divine omniscience, it also bears the evidence of his sovereignty. God is the Almighty with absolute power, able to direct all of history, even the most chaotic forces we can imagine, to a point. To a moment in time. It doesn't just occur, it's been chosen for his end and for his glory. Have a great week.